Black Hole is a print-and-play solo sci-fi board game. You play as Jaakub, an explorer who travels to various planets through space and time. The game is a solo campaign with some legacy aspects that spans 30 to 40 game sessions of about 30 minutes each. Although each individual mission has its own objectives tied to resource management, the ultimate goal of the campaign is to piece together the story of Jaakub and his world by answering an end-of-game questionnaire. In my opinion, Black Hole has its flaws of course, but it is a hidden gem for solo gamers, dripping with space-time travel theme. I hope I'll be able to show you why in this video. Although I did get the physical version, except for the components quality, it is the same as the print and play. I encourage you to get the free print and play and give it a try for about 3 game sessions at about 30 minutes per game. By then, you'll know if the game is for you or not. Black Hole being a print and play, although my copy is a physical copy from the Kickstarter, I won't talk about the components, but I have to say the art is gorgeous. There is a very nice space exploration theme dripping through the art of the cards and in the book. It definitely helps with the immersion through the game, even if there isn't that much art overall. The heart of Black Hole is its campaign, which is all about piecing together the whole story of the sci-fi world you evolve in. The campaign is made of about 30 missions, during which you play as space explorer Jaakub, who will have to travel to planets and through time in order to understand his own story, but I'll get back to that shortly. For now I want to quickly talk about the core loop of a single mission. Each mission lasts about 30 minutes. Each turn is as follows. You randomly draw 4 planet cards and roll dice to determine how far they are. You can choose to travel to some of them using fuel in order to try and acquire resources. The further they are, the more fuel it costs to get there, and sometimes you'll choose it's not worth it. When you travel to a planet, you roll 2 exploration dice, black and white respectively. Depending on which die has the biggest number, you either get the resource that matches the white arrow or the one that matches the black arrow. If the dice numbers are equal, you instead get to read a specific paragraph of the storybook. When you're done traveling to the planets, or don't want to travel to more planets of this step, you draw 4 new ones, rinse and repeat. The game session ends either when you achieve the mission's resource goals, when you die or run out of fuel, or when you've cycled through the planet deck 4 times. So typically for a mission you will try to balance the cost of traveling to a planet versus what it can bring you if you explore it successfully, and how that matches the mission's goals. Black Hole's core loop is a resource management and push your luck dice game. However, the real meat of the game and the ultimate goal of the campaign is to understand Jaakub's story. Anytime you roll equal numbers on the exploration dice, you get to read some paragraphs that give you tiny details about the universe or on your character and his family. A lot of the game revolves on your relation with your son, but I won't spoil. This mechanic of reading paragraphs of a book is a bit similar to a game such as Sleeping Gods, although I think Black Hole does it better, but more on that in the review section. Game designer Yosef Fari managed to hook me pretty quickly on the story, and I always wanted to play one more game to understand what's going on with Planet X, Individual Y or Artifact Z. This is why I really encourage you to try the print and play game, because I think you can quickly understand if you like the game or not. After a few games, it becomes clear that more than resource management to complete the current mission, it is equally as important to survive as long as possible during this mission, to learn more about the story, even if this means failing the current objectives. This equilibrium reminds me to some extent of Pandemic Legacy, where sometimes losing a mission was inevitable and alternate choices needed to be made in order to squeeze the most out of it despite the incoming failure. As you progress through the campaign, more details are revealed, as well as a questionnaire in 3 parts revealed progressively. The ultimate goal of the campaign is to answer questions about Jaakub, his family, and what happened to their world. This questionnaire mechanism isn't totally new, but I'll explain later why I think it works a bit better than a game such as Sherlock Holmes, for example. I've mentioned it before, but overall I love this game. I feel that the campaign mechanic is original, the games play quick enough for a short session here and there, and the story of Jaakub is so exciting it's difficult to stop coming back for one more game. As a matter of fact, I completed the campaign in less than 10 days, and that was probably the only game I played, and the only one I wanted to play during that period. I hadn't been so excited by a board game in a long time, but Black Hole is far from perfect, of course. In particular, the resource management core loop of each individual session felt very random to me. A lot of the planets you visit have a good outcome and a not so good one, sometimes really bad outcome depending on your exploration dice rolls. And mitigation for those rolls is almost non-existent. There are a few items you can purchase between missions to get rerolls, for example, but those are quite expensive. Also, losing a mission often means you won't have enough money to buy items to help with the next one. I'm sure a better balance was achievable here. By comparison, I feel a game such as Pandemic Legacy did a better job of putting you back on track when you lost a given mission by sending you extra support. Randomness is unfortunately the name of the game for a lot of the individual missions, with even some parts reminding me of the old school choose your own adventure books. Make a wrong decision or a wrong dice roll in some paragraphs of the book, and you're simply dead. The campaign isn't over, but you just failed the current mission. Those brutal endings are frustrating, but they are baked into the gameplay. You now know you'll have to either avoid that specific paragraph altogether in the future, or come more prepared with mitigation items to ensure you don't lose this or that dice roll. With all of that randomness in the game, where you actually have agency is in choosing whether you'll visit a given planet or if it's not worth the risk and the fuel. There is some strategy to this, but it might not be enough if you can't stand the dice rolls with almost no mitigation mechanism. More than once I pulled my hair yelling at the game, "There is no strategy, it's all f***ing random!" And for some missions I chose from the start that I'd simply not win them to instead focus on reading more of the story. The same can be said for some of the planets, which have huge penalties if you fail exploring them. Then again, you occasionally want to visit them at least to read their stories. It is an interesting dilemma of the game ultimately, and paradoxically, a huge part of its appeal. Once you understand that winning the current mission isn't always what it's about, Black Hole really shines. The resource management and missions become a mean to an end, which is figuring out what happened in that universe. Why is this world at war? How and why is Jaakub's family involved in all of this? As I played, I kept wanting to discover more. The genius of the writing and the universe that Fari has created here needs to be emphasized. Because time travel is involved in the story, it completely justifies that we're reading bits and pieces of Jaakub's story in an arbitrary order. It's like the movie Memento or the video game Her Story, if you know those, but with years, sometimes decades between each piece of the story, not to mention that the story spans on an entire planetary system. And here I have to make a comparison with Sleeping Gods, because to me Black Hole is everything that Sleeping Gods failed to deliver. This is of course a very personal opinion, feel free to comment if you disagree, but to me one of the biggest disappointments in Sleeping Gods was that all the stories I was reading were entirely disconnected. It is a design choice in that game of course, but to me it meant there was no mystery to unravel, just vignettes not connected to each other. Black Hole takes this concept but elevates it, as you have to piece the story together, which is what to me all the excitement is about. On the end of game questionnaire aspect, Black Hole is similar to a session of Sherlock Holmes, but I feel it does it better because of one single point. Black Hole reveals the questionnaire progressively mid-campaign, meaning that you are given some time to actually look for answers to specific questions now that you know them. I found Sherlock Holmes frustrating because sometimes you got the murder right, but didn't have the answer to some arbitrary questions, and that felt punishing. I feel Black Hole solves that. Last but not least, there are other nice design decisions in Black Hole. It's actually possible to play the game in parallel with a friend, both playing the solo adventure and exchanging bits of information through the Black Hole mechanic. The game also lets you email the enigmatic Bob in real life to ask a few questions. Be prepared for more puzzling answers though. In my opinion, Black Hole Kyrum is certainly a hidden solo gem. Despite its flawed core gameplay with too much randomness and not enough dice roll mitigation for my taste, time flew by during the 20 hours or so I spent on the campaign. And I'll certainly be following Josef Fari's future game closely. Black Hole was one of the best solo games I played in a long time.